at the nexus of investment, innovation, and development. Deputy Assistant Secretary Joy Basu is on a 3-day visit with us here in Nigeria with some senior government officials in business and tech leaders, including representatives of US companies. You're welcome.
Thank you.
Also joining us on the panel is Asha Adeli. Asha is co-founder and CEO of EasyPay. He's a 2017 Mandela Washington Fellow and a co-founder of EasyPay and the CEO. EasyPay is a tech solution that helps businesses transition from processing payrolls and taxes manually to a completely digitized format. In 2022, EasyPay was accepted into the Silicon Valley Tech Startup Accelerator Y Combinator and closed its early seed round of $2 million. Asha is a serial entrepreneur and also co-founded Giddy Jobs, an online recruitment firm that connects job seekers to employers, and they have been involved in recruiting over 40,000 employees for clients across various sectors and industries in Nigeria. You're welcome, Asha. So I will just kick off with a question to you, D.S. Basu. It's almost about a year to the day since you got in on this position. I'm sure you're counting a few weeks to your first year anniversary. I hope it will fall to the back. That will be December. But I just would like to know, in this position as the Deputy Assistant Secretary in the Bureau of African Affairs, can you describe your role in overseeing commercial and trade diplomacy for Africa at the State Department, especially in this period where there's so much talk about trade in Africa, intra-Africa trade, Africa versus China, Africa versus all of this space?
It's a great question, and thank you again for having me. Thank you all for being here. Thank you all for the work you do and the partnerships you have in all sorts of ways with the American people, the American government, American institutions. It is really exciting to see all of you, and I'm looking forward to this conversation, but also speaking with all of you afterwards. So again, I'm just very grateful for this opportunity. To your question, so as you mentioned at the beginning, the portfolio is really broad, but it is really this piece of the economic and commercial engagement that inspired me to leave my jobs in private sector and come serve my country in this capacity, because I would say 3 things. One, my career has really been motivated by this conviction that companies play a fundamental role in not only solving problems, but the economic development and the prosperity that we need for all of our communities, right? And there is a role for government, there's an important role for civil society, but it is companies that create those solutions, that companies that hire the individuals, there's companies that innovate, and we need to create the right enabling environments for them to do that, and we need to do so faster and in more equitable ways around the world. And so I used to be an investor on the continent, and I came to this job because I saw that the US government invests so much in the development and healthcare and education and food security on the continent, that there was so much more hopefully that we could be helping to unlock when it comes to the trade piece of that, and the creativity that goes into that, not just for the benefit of the people of Nigeria, but the people of Africa, and honestly, the people of the US and the world, right? The talent that is here, we owe it to the world to let that do its great work. And so I was hoping that I could come and be a partner in that. This part of the portfolio really has a few areas of focus right now. And again, afterwards, I think we'll also find my colleague actually who's here with me from Washington. But the goal is, how do we think about building on aid, but also answering this question of trade? And how do we think about unlocking capital more, doing so in a coordinated way? How do we think about the incredible African diaspora in the United States and making sure that history and that people-to-people connection is elevated in a way that serves both people on both the continents, and in our country and this continent? And how do we think about about the ways in which diplomacy and economic diplomacy and commercial diplomacy work hand in hand. The portfolio also has human rights and governance. I have a background in law and business because those are two sides of the same thing, right? We need the right regulatory environments in order to allow businesses to thrive, and we need businesses to grow and to create an expanding economy in order to support stability. We're seeing that so much right now in this part of the world. And so I was hoping that I could be a part of these conversations and to enable that to happen. I'm going to go on, but I will stop for now because I have a dialogue.
Sure, I just even follow up the topic for this conversation is anchored around empowering youth, opportunities and entrepreneurship and innovation. And incidentally, I'm actually sat beside by all Silicon Valley people, technically speaking, and you also have your own background from Silicon Valley, and reputably one of the most innovative places in the whole. Some of the world's biggest innovations have come out of that valley. What would you say to this audience is the place of innovation in them founding their businesses, in the place of innovation for businesses?
Yeah, I think innovation it's foundational to business at every level, whether you are innovating a new solution because we need better products and services that answer the challenge, like the climate challenge, we need better healthcare solutions, whether innovation is into that's not landing on us, exactly. Right? Innovation, one of the innovation things into the actual products that you're bringing, or is innovating the service delivery model, right? That we need to serve more people on this continent to meet their basic needs. And that might not be an innovation of a new idea, but the how is as important. So it could also be what big companies are doing here. I think, one thing I learned in the Valley is that it is when big companies stop learning how to innovate, that they really, right, like they atrophy. And some of that is the creative destruction, but I do think it is a part of the process of continuing to be innovative externally and internally in order to make sure that you are meeting your customers' needs, but also that you're seeing those needs, and giving us more options for all the challenges we have. And so I just think it is so foundational, so fundamental. And in fact, I hope that we're really working as the U.S. government to be more innovative in the way that we think, because it's also a really critical part of policy making. Is seeing the challenge and looking at it from different angles, having diverse points of view. This is a week where we know how such patterns from the past can be repeated, right? So we have to think, we have to orient ourselves both to the future, but also unshackle ourselves and think of the past that leads ourselves, and that's where innovation shift. And the innovation tools are, they're critical to our own salvation.
Yeah, the very spot on. Someone said that when you stop to innovate, you start to die. Start to be like pretty much set yourself up to it. Some may say. I'll just come to you, Asha. Talk us through your own journey in embracing entrepreneurship, especially before the program started. I was curious. So on the sidelines, I asked him, did he ever work for someone? Because I think there are always two entrepreneurs, those who never worked for anybody, and those who started out working for someone and then went on their own. We'll try to figure out who is better. But, what was your own journey like, Asha? What made you take that step?
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for having me here. I think so. I grew up in northern Nigeria.
Whereabouts?
In
Nigeria as well.
Okay. I grew up in Bauchi. I was born in Bauchi. I was raised in Kaduna, Bauchi.
I never saw you on this.
So I was used to a lot of computer fellowshipping and just, there was love around, a lot of love around, but less of money resources. And but as we came down to the south, so southwest, actually there was a kind of riots, very huge riots in the early 90s. So we went down south. And then when I got here and as I grew up, as I went to college, I studied engineering, and I went for my internship. I was trying to figure out what to do. I wanted to do engineering or something else. And then I figured out that I wasn't going to do engineering, So fortunately, I met a mentor, someone that became a mentor. He was a director of marketing for Coca-Cola for about 5 African countries. So it was after my experience at the Coca-Cola bottling company in my internship, he was going to start his own business. So I just wrote in that, I look forward to starting my business after college. And I just come on board and learn. So I worked with him for 4 years. Second year, I felt advanced, but when he said I was telling him the story, so I was handling a couple of projects for some top companies in Lagos, just within a short period of starting work with him. And then he couldn't just really to spend time. So gave him a lot of notice, about 2 years. Then I started my our first startup jobs, which became first 5 in Nigeria in 2 years. So we're targeting recruitment of young graduates in Nigeria, and in doing that, I started training them. So that was my first experience, and I just wanted to. I think the main thing was the first business I started was to solve a problem that my friends had. So I graduated and got a job before I finished school, but lots of my friends didn't have a job. So while I was working with the big companies here in Lagos and working with marketing and operations for those companies, I was also think jobs like picking my friends to get jobs in Lagos.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, let's try and do this on a broader scale. So I was actually telling him that it wasn't really about money because I wasn't really bothered about money in the first place. It was just, okay, we could fix, we could. So it was passion that also led me to training people for the jobs, because when my friends go for interviews and they didn't get the jobs, I tell them, I actually have finished all the conversation just for you to get the job. So what happened? And then we had to do some training for them to get the job. So then that was what we did, and we did for a number of years. So that was my, so in answering the question, I think I got into entrepreneurship, not just because of the passion, because I desired to just do my own thing, but also because I had the passion for that particular problem at that particular point in time. And if you look at what we do now, so then we service over 300 companies in Lagos, and then we were servicing over 10,000 Dangote wholesalers. So we knew that, and that's that list to make wholesalers. So we knew that I had challenges with people because the GMP, so so that was one of easy things because we had start customers.
Wow. Okay. I hear a couple of things. I hear passion. I hear paying attention to see opportunity. You've got to respect the man who goes from soda to Adora, for you, Dr. dwelling among technologists or Dr. Gone Tech. Sometimes I'm not sure many people say in that consulting room when you're getting and your doctor tells you I'm a tech. Probably be messing with the scalpel and you pay for it. But I mean, you were in the Tech Women program. Tell us about this. What knowledge did you gain from it? What are the things that have happened? How does that impact started on what you do and how you've been implementing the rest?
I think the Techman experience was one of the most likely experiences I could have in 2022. A little bit of background of myself. So yes, I trained as a medical doctor. I still work as a medical doctor. But what I've been able to do is that I've been able to leverage technology to increase access to life-saving solutions for my patients. I have patients in faraway places in Nigeria that cannot travel all the way to Lagos, and what they need to do is to connect with doctors. And so we developed the platform called Oncopad, right? And what Oncopad does is that we connect you to doctors, we connect you to hospitals, we connect you to tools, resources that can help you with this journey, this very devastating journey called cancer. Now, for me, of that, we know that in Nigeria, about 200 million of us, but there are less than 800 clinical oncologists, right? And so that means one doctor gets to see about 5,000 patients, which is really not possible, right? And so for us, was leveraging technology. And so going for the Techman program, I think the first thing I understood from the tech, or I learned from the Techman program, was building structure. For me, I never run a business, right? I've always been a doctor, just wanted to pay lives, right? I just want to get my hands in there, help my patients, give them as much more time as I could. But with Techman, I understood, what it was to run a business, what needed to do, to set up structures to actually run a business. That there is the need, to set up some regulatory, you need to be regulatory compliant, right? So what are all those legal compliance that you need to do? There's also Techman also exposed me to this thing called IP. I never heard the word IP. So a lot of people used to talk about intellectual property here and there. Like, what are you really talking about, right? But when we went over to Silicon Valley and opportunity to do a 62 program there, I learned a lot about IP, and I learned more importantly about challenges, more importantly that women face in actually IP some of their solutions, right? And so that was what, and I've been able to bring all of that and back. And lastly would be, I would say, one other thing that has stuck around with me is learning how to deliver a successful pitch. Right? So in the business of entrepreneurship, you are pitching literally every time you meet anybody, right? But how do you deliver a short pitch in 2 minutes, 3 minutes about yourself that give that person who they don't knowledge you to actually want to invest in you, to be even be interested in you? So I learned that aspect of pitching, and I think I've been able to use that over the course of my journey.
Thank you. When a doctor goes from brain to mind, but thankfully no surgery was involved in that scenario. Now, Africa as a continent is predicted to be heading towards a place where in a few years there'll be 3 out of about every 5 young people who are say 30 and below will be from out of Africa. Sounds sometimes scary, but then could seem like there's an opportunity. In your earlier comment, yes, Basu, you did mention, I heard you mention youth and youth. Clearly, there's a place of passion for you in what you do. In the context of our conversation now, can you elaborate how crucial it is to support young people as entrepreneurs and innovators, particularly here in Nigeria?
Yeah, definitely. I was also listening to this about there's a central thesis amongst innovation and democracy, which is the idea that the people will be answers, and I think that's something that's just really connected and listen to some of these exchanges. To your question, right, there's no doubt, there's no doubt in my mind that Nigeria's greatest resource, not its oil, it's not its mineral, it's people, right? That it's obvious that this is the greatest resource we have, and we need to make sure that that talent is developed, so it has an opportunity. Again, this really very much goes to my American story that, I grew up in a place where I knew that I could get the education, that I just have the tools to captain my fate. And one of the reasons I came to public service is that I know that the most people who look like me around the world that is not something that you take for granted. And it is something that I owe as, as an American to make those opportunities more widespread in my own country, but also around the world. And so if we don't enable Nigerians and people to solve their problems, if we don't listen to them, if we don't give them that opportunity, they'll either be, the world's workforce, we know that they have, they can be the world's greatest asset, or a liability, right? We know what is happening in some parts of the world, and that it's not because instability is more likely to occur in certain areas. No, it's because there's not opportunity, and people everywhere are trying to meet their basic needs. And so we truly believe that, if we know that we're all in this together, whether it's in our democracy or whether it is on this planet, we all have an interest in making sure that talent thrives. And so you see that whenever I'm on the continent, I'm so energized when I see the creativity, I see the hard work, I see the intelligence, and as a partner, as a partner country, I want to help unlock that. And again, I'm part of that in the self-interest of, I know that we cannot solve the world's problems without Africa and without Nigeria, and we can't do that then without African youth in Nigeria.
Thank you. Asha, you always hear, there's always talk about startup. So we wouldn't escape the question about that. Startups often have their share of challenges. And most times you find that people are reading so much about how to start up, but not so much are reading about how to scale.
Yeah.
So can we get your own thoughts on how to deal with these challenges post startup or in startup, so you stay on?
In startup, because I'm in startup. So I think let's be real. Let's talk about being accountable. Okay. So we heard about we just recently heard about a number of stories in Nigeria and in some neighboring countries, right? So I think the first thing is be accountable, right? I think that because when startups fail, it's not really a mystery. It's not a mystery. I was reading CNBC News this morning, and I read the court proceedings with the failed crypto.
Okay.
Yeah. US. FTX. And I was reading, I saw the screen of the messages of the internet messages between founders and engineers. And it's just there was no accountability. Somebody has to, and so and that's something that's a very huge value at EasyPay. So for instance, when recently my co-founders, and I think that's another thing that we should have. If founders should have co-founders, from the story that, or from what I said earlier, yes, I had the idea of EasyPay, but I looked for people that we could ride on that journey together. So why? Shared pressure. Yeah, that's. I'm just being very practical. Shared pressure and everything. So very recently, as I was saying, my co-founder, myself and the finance officer did a budget and then sent it to my co-founders, for approval, and then they made several adjustments, and we talked about it, and then based on the budget, we said, okay, let's do something about inflow revenue, and then we had, for the first time, we had 72 hour meeting, just slept a bit, and this was virtual, So we had to rethink some things, and this was not at all about mismanagement. So but we hear a lot of mismanagement stories, right? So I think the first thing is stay as a responsible management of resources, because you've collected, either you are delivering value, so your customer has an expectation, or you have raised money, so your investors have an expectation. So you have to be accountable to manage those expectations very well. Then,
You can say as with startups, as with governments.
yeah. So I think if we zero in on that, we can build so many things.
I think the most said word there that reverberates is accountability. And I think I once stumbled across something describing the most dangerous person in the world is that one person who is not accountable to anyone. Like literally it's bad for them, but they're equally dangerous for everybody. So I guess it goes as it in business, it is in life as well, just like it is in government. Adora, let me come back to you. In terms of what you've been doing, innovation sits at the core of it, but how do you keep up with a lot of these changes that seem to happen in that space and meet people's expectations with tech involved? Because there's so much about people wanting the next thing. There's a lot of R&D that goes into birth the next thing, and it always seems like, oh, come on, give me the next thing. How do you keep up with that?
Really, at the core of what we do is research, right? In medicine generally and anywhere, research and development is the core of what we do there. And so what we do is we very heavily, a good number of the funds we release goes to research and development. Secondly, that we are always keen on getting feedback from our customers, from our users. We are always very keen on getting feedback. Every quarter we do focus group discussions where we actually sit down with some previous users, to just interact with them and get their own insight as to what was your experience with our product, what changes would you like to see, and just really get their own sense around what we should innovate in. Then next is, of course, always keep an eye out for your competitors, right? What are other people doing in this space? What are the stakeholders doing in this space? More recently now, there is the need to delve into AI. And so very quickly, we are very agile to say, we've been gathering data over the years since we started the company. And now all of this data, what role can AI play in healthcare? And we're, playing in that space and trying to see some of this data analytics, what we can do with that. So just being abreast with all of these changing and evolving trends from day to day, but most importantly is listen to your customers, listen to feedback and take those feedbacks, be open to change and be agile and flexible in changing your business model as the time evolves.
This is very, very attentive. I want to be attentive on this, Joy, because we'll be talking about all of the things that innovators can do, all the places that sitting in the heart of what your part of the State Department pursues, there are lots of opportunities that relate with innovation and entrepreneurship for young people. Let's get to the meat of the matter. What are some of these opportunities and how can one sitting here or listening in, a young Nigerian, take advantage?
Wonderful. I love how tactical that is. That is what we're all here for, right? So I would say the US is dedicated to economic partnership with Nigeria, but also investing in the people of Nigeria. Like that is what Nigeria is missing. The sum of its people, and that's and so that is where our investments need to go. That has come through a long history of our work in Nigeria. The first thing I would say is to follow the social media, US in Nigeria, where we have a great team here, the consulate and the embassies that are posting these opportunities, whether that's for tech women, whether that's for our awe program. So I would break it into 3 categories to look for. One, opportunity with trainings, capacity building being done here in Nigeria, where we're bringing experts from different industries, we're bringing resources, and these workshops here, whether they're in these spaces that you're in, or whether they're in partnership with American companies. So look out for those opportunities because exactly that feeling and that partnership together of using all the skills and talents and ideas you have and finding the people here to work with. The one, the constantly have to book do that, bring workshops here. Two, there are opportunities to go to the US for training. We talked about tech women, and there's a few of those programs. And I would say, please talk to my colleagues here from the consulate, but the things to look for there are, they tend to be very specific for the industry. And that's a really big investment. So think about what is my passion? I'm not sure talking about what is the unique perspective and skill I built. And let's find, if there are opportunities to go to the US for, fellowship, internships, training, or Mandela, Washington, or other things. The third thing I would say is, look for partnerships with American companies, whether that's directly in jobs, whether that's selling your product to them. And that, again, building on that incredible people-to-people US Nigeria bond that is there. Yes, I want the government to be a great enabler of that. And you, as young Nigerians, nothing will stand in your way. And so form those connections, right? The last thing I'll say is that is what I found was the common thread as an investor to now being a diplomat is it's in these spaces having these conversations. It's about solving problems together in partnership, and that is what comes from being an investor to also being a diplomat. So do that directly with the products you sell, the goods you're producing with your fellow entrepreneurs. It's find ways to innovate, how we interact as well. Does that help? It's a start.
It's a start. I'll do well. After like fintech, you always hear it always seems like it's a place like it's that dream place. It's an El Dorado where you can go and pick up some money, like you pick up $2 billion. You didn't show me the road and it's there. But let's look at skill sets that you need. What would you say would be like if, for instance, there was the magic one? What would be this most critical skill set that I need if I want to get into fintech as a techpreneur?
Okay, so when I say it, I'm saying it as Asha. I don't say that as yeah, I would say that I'm entrepreneur. But I think that's what has helped. For instance, we had opportunities to get $3 million more.
And you wanted for 2?
Yeah, we didn't collect it because of values. So the first thing is if you want to start it, so if anybody is looking into going to fintech in Nigeria, understand economics very well. Because if you don't understand it, you are not going to be successful. You probably just spend other people's money and path offshore, right? So the first thing is understand economics, right? I think the second thing is be humble to learn. Because it's very important to learn.
But I thought all fintech people were like copying. They like a chips on their shoulder, and that was part of the requirement to be successful.
I mean, success is not a destination, right? So you can raise money and say you are successful, right? But there are other things, that we can say, that makes it as successful. So I think in Nigeria, to be successful as in the fintech, you have to be humble so that you'll be able to, you need reliable partners, right? One of the, I always say this, I think that I think that I'm a very good ambassador of the Mandela Washington Fellowship. Not just because my colleagues here are part of it, but my school, Drake University in Illinois, Iowa, I'm very proud of him. We've been able to take Nigerian business leaders from here, there. And why I mentioned MWS is because it's part of the learning process when we had a lot of issues with, the basic issue was our metrics. I could just call Professor Martin Mitchell at Drake University to walk us through what this together. So we've had, so I think, we know a lot of background stories about fintech, right? So I think let's just be humble, right? If you're looking at going into fintech, you need a lot of connection with the banks, you need personal integrity. Years ago, we used to talk about Nigeria doesn't have credit rating system, but they do.
What's it called?
So don't worry. Once something to name, you find out, you say yes or no.
Okay.
And where we have now, we also have access to those credit ratings. So you know what you do with your PTA, for instance. Yeah. What you've done with your BBN, what you did yesterday with your BBN, So personal integrity is good to have, because you need integration with the banks. Right now, our company we have integrations with all PFAs, those are pension fund administrators, all the banks, major PSSPs. So you need, because integrity is the currency that you spend first when you don't have a lot of capital to pay for what you need to pay for initially, So yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Can you make one comment about that quickly? I think I value that so much, and I agree with you so deeply. It's character first, that is your credibility, and then your credit in so many ways. Earlier we talked about some of the recent big startup failures, and I want to clarify, it's not failing that's the problem, right? Failing is a part of being innovative, but it is failing for a lack of integrity and for accountability. That is the problem, and that is what brings down everyone's resources.
Yes.
So, with an honest effort, that is a part of the process. And I want to make sure that people are very know that you're not a failure if you don't have to come to your point.
Yeah. I think just to buttress that point, I have a friend, white company, so she trying to remember the name of our company where a customer to, but she recently raised 30 million. Friend 3 startups failed. But in each of the 3 startups, and this is a value that we also owe there, in each of those 3 startups, she wasn't able to give investors back all the money, but she gave something back, and she gave regular reports. Same thing with founder of OpenAI, and I'm trying to remember another startup, I can't remember. But I think just integrity, let people know that you give it an effort and you didn't mismanage the resources.
And I guess that ties back to the place of accountability and being consistent in all of those things. I take that back because I've got 2 boys, and the only thing I've asked them for is, as a Nigerian parent, I tell them I need them to bring me an admission letter to Stanford. That's all I'm asking. I'm not asking so much. But I'll ask from you, Ada, in the end, having done all of the things you've been doing, what would you say are key elements for starting and running a successful business here in Nigeria? And what has been the most rewarding part of your own business? I mean, you can even say it in amount, naira.
Okay, so I think in Nigeria, and I think it applies to everywhere, is you must know the local industry, right? You must understand the local market, what is obtainable here, how do we operate, right? And what you want to do is you want to make sure that you are building systems that align with what is relevant to us locally. So for instance, you want to build a telemedicine platform, right? There's a certain way you build a telemedicine platform from in the US, right? But there are certain ways you need to take into account that, in Nigeria, internet penetration is at this level. There are some rural places that you probably don't have access to internet. what ways can you now define your business or build your solution to that local context? Making sure that whatever you're taking, you really can fit into the local industry or the local markets. Secondly, is you must have domain expertise, right? And I think it speaks to what you said earlier, right? Asha said earlier, you must understand where you are, or the space you're going to play in. For one, I know that I understand the medical and healthcare industry very well, and that's why I'm very comfortable that no matter what I do, I always stay in the health space, right? I don't find myself outside of the health space, right? And I think that the second thing, or the third thing really would be also understanding that you can't do it alone. And so you must be open to identify mission-aligned partners that can help you on that journey, right? So you want to do something in Nigeria, you have to look for partners in Nigeria to that. And I think that's something we do very well, even in the American context, is looking for mission-aligned partners that can actually help you. And I think lastly, would be just going on that journey, right? Learning, failing, getting up, and just learning, continuous learning, right? You never know it until you get into it, right? So you have to just give it your all, keep the lights on, and get at it and get better.
I mean, I hear one thing that like been repeated by all three of them at different points is the place of connection. Joy mentioned trying to make sure that you are making friends from across the other side of the ocean, like you are speaking to people, engaging. Same thing Asha said about having partners, and you have just echoed that about looking for mission aligned people. So I guess people will always win. I always say in the end, people always win over anything. We've got a few minutes, and I think it will be proper if anyone has got any question. How many there are questions I didn't ask for that some people will want to. So you can indicate, and we can take maybe about 2 or so questions if possible, so we can meet our time target. Okay, we've got one hand there. Okay.
Thank you very much for this really pleasure and inviting me to you all. My name is Iberi Okoye. I'm joined in my biology, and I'm really proud of Asha over there. I play in the mental health space, and I'm also very impressed with what you do for that. And my question is, I hear Asha speak a lot about raising funds $2 billion. $20 million.
Not 20 years.
I don't know. I also hear you talk about personal integrity, accountability, and everything. But I really wanted to ask the beauty assistant there that if you have all of this in place, which I believe are the grace of what I do, and finding myself accountable with the things that I have, but you can only do as much as you could with the resources that you have. I have a very genuine 100% passion for mental wellness, making people have access to quality mental health services. And I really want to do more, right? I have like this very big vision about bringing mental wellness, especially youths. Just like we said, Nigeria being a very rich country, we're not talking about the natural resources, we're talking about the human beings, right? And I feel that people will definitely be able to do a lot more, much more, if they have the capacity, if their minds are expanded to really reach within themselves. And I want to ask very specifically, the name of my organization is My Everybody, by the way. We recently celebrated our 3rd anniversary, and I'm really proud about that. Are there specific opportunities for partnership? You are very big on partnership, and I'm very committed together. Partnerships and collaborations with some American institutions, or even right here, because these things might exist, but if I don't have access to them, I wouldn't be able to unlock those. And there's things like that, and you want to point that can actually help you do more and impact more in the amazing space. Thank you.
Thank you. I think I'm squeezing just one more. Is there one from this side? Okay, there's one hand there. Okay, we'll squeeze it, please. Let's get to the change with yours as well.
Yeah, my name is Dr. So my question is, you're working in health and education sector. I have seen a lot of challenges between going for tradition, our tradition, and most of the people that usually come very late. That's a big challenge. How do you have a particular target of people, or how do you reach those people that are already coming late? That's my question.
Thank you, Doc. Okay, so I will just let you go in the order of how you want to answer.
Okay, so yes, thank you so much for that question. We've always faced challenges when it comes to health, especially even in the healthcare space. That challenge of education, right, and even acceptance of some of the solutions we've given. But I think one thing we've not set aside, we've not excluded from the equation is still the need for the traditional ways of doing things. So we still need our hospitals. We still need our cancer advocacy programs. We still go into communities to run medical outreaches, right? Get closer to the people. We still go in on market days, we talk to these women, right? So a good number of organizations do present leads. But what I think we've been able to achieve with them is that we've been able to provide them with that support, right? That support and those resources to let them know that cancer, even though it may be a debilitating condition, you're not alone, and we're here to help you. And I think we've been able to achieve a good number. We've served over 4,000 patients in Nigeria alone and Spain.
All right.
The last word on this. Great question. Let's talk back because I know we're running out of time. One, your very company is evidence as to why youth entrepreneurship is so important, right? You mentioned a generation ago, someone recognizing the importance of mental health, not because it wasn't important then, but because, we have a new generation that is willing to say those things that have reverberated through our history. So thank you, and you are a great example of that. Two, we can talk about specific ideas, but you're already doing the fellowship program, which is great. You clearly have passion, right? You're leveraging those. I have some ideas with 50 years. Well, let's talk after this, but I just wanted to say, you're right. You are testifying that you're important, and thank you for caring so much about this.
Thank you. Literally, we'll let you be the last man.
I think
We've got a minute that we need to wrap up.
yeah. So yes, 1 minute. So I think that what came to my mind when you spoke is about product market fit. And I've read a lot of publications, scientific data-driven publications that it's still hard to penetrate Nigeria when you have a mental health business. So yes, so because of the stigmatization, we just feel like so it's thinking about that, because for you to definitely have a successful business, you must have product market. So you should know what people are willing to pay for, how many people are willing to pay for it, and then we begin to scale. Then we can talk about, is it a social enterprise or a core business enterprise? That's how we can then navigate that, saying okay, who is able to fund this kind of enterprise?
Okay. Thank you very much. At least a round of applause for Thank you, Thank you, Dr. Dora.
Thank you.
A pleasure. My goal was to finish at the nick of time. I hope I'll be able to.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. Now, we have in the audience alumni of different GS government programs. And part of the deal is that you get photos with you from their respective constituencies.